My name is Yellow Light Breen. It's my great privilege to be the CEO of MDF, class of 2016 in the Sci class. Gosh.
I'm just the program director.
Yeah. Sci class of Leadership Maine. They let me graduate. I was kind of an emergency student because the program director quit the week before the opening retreat. And I think I told you at your opening retreat, that's how I found Jan at the barbecue joint across the street and said, Jan, you want to run a leadership program?
I didn't know him at all.
Yeah. So, but like you, we went to Washington County on our bus tour. And like you, we wound up here. And despite my memory of being here with different graduations over the past few years, like I always forget how stunning this place is and just how special it is to be here. So Jan's like, well, maybe you could kick us off, Yellow, and share a few reflections from your own class here. I just really honestly remember, like, on the bus tour that first motel we stayed at was promptly dubbed the Meth Lab Motel by class members with some good reason. And then the second night when we stayed down by Lubeck, people had to smash a compact disc and jimmy the lock on one of the dwellings that they were assigned to get in. So those are the things I remember the most about my year in Leadership Maine. But I also, I think, most distinctly remember two things about it. One, I remember, having had colleagues from my company go through the program over the years and always just thinking of this as basically a networking program. And when I got a chance to actually do it, and even to travel to businesses and communities in Maine that I thought I knew at least something about, really experiencing those in a different way by being part of such a diverse and special learning community that was along for the ride with Leadership Maine. And as I often say to people, a dental practice manager from Lewiston will ask such different questions than I would think to ask, and will ask them without maybe the political agenda people might impute to me if I were to ask them. And so you just experience and see things through the lens of other people's eyes and minds, and it's such a powerful thing. And then, hilariously, after years of saying that dental practice manager is now the mayor of Lewiston. So that could be you. You just never know. So that kind of experience really sticks in my mind. And then, of course, part of what sticks in my mind goes back to the high ropes course at the very beginning, right? And I'll never forget that one woman we had in our class for whom it was tough for a lot of us, right? And how wide are those logs? They're not that narrow, really. They're like 30 inches. Yeah. They're really, if it was, no, they're not. They're wider than that. But if it was 6 inches off the ground, no problem, right? But fear is such a powerful, yeah. But fear is such a powerful, powerful barrier for all of us. But there was one woman in my class in particular for whom this was like, a struggle right to the edge for her. And like, she wasn't sure if she could do it. Nobody else was sure if she could do it. And, everyone was cheering her on. And in the end, she's like, shut up. Like, I don't need to hear from all you. There was one guy with us who was coaching us, and she's like, I just need to hear from him. She just needed one quiet voice, not a whole lot of loud voices, to get her up to that log and across that log. And she made it, right? And it was like such a powerful, transformative moment for her and for all of us watching. And when she came down, she thanked the belay team that was there holding her, 3 or 4 people, thanked the belay team for holding her through that. And the members of the belay team said, no, thank you for trusting us enough to hold you. I will never forget that for the rest of my life. Thank you for trusting us enough to hold you. So hopefully you had an amazing year. I think talking to some of you last night and this morning, I know you did. I always think about the fact that with Leadership Maine, like, you can't approach a bunch of bankers, lawyers, and accountants and say, you're going to have a personally transformative experience in this program. Am I right, bankers? Right? So we're like, you're going to learn about the Maine economy. Right? You're going to learn about the Maine economy. But obviously we know and hope and trust that powerfully transformative things will also happen along the way inside that wrapper of learning about the Maine economy. I certainly want to thank our sponsors for the graduation today, which helps make this really work. Bangor Savings, Saco Biddeford Savings, LL Bean, First Federal, Chinbro, Mimic, Maine Venture Fund, Versant. I was saying to Judy, like, even earlier this week, I heard peers in the utility industry refer to it as Versant. And I wanted to come out of my seat. Versant and Height Automotive. Thank you for supporting today. And raise your hand if you're here as an employer, a family member, a colleague. I know we have several folks who are here to support their graduates. Thank you for being here. That really means a lot, I know, to them and means a lot to us at MDF. And on your table, you also have our Champion Circle members at MDF. And I told Dave, coffee is for closers, so you always got to be selling. So if you don't see your company's name on this list, you should be. See me after the program. No, seriously. So the other thing I just wanted to share before turning it over to our amazing keynoter, first of all, I wanted to say, you're part of now not only the MDF family, but the family of Leadership Maine alumni. And, I don't know, David, if you still find this to be true, but when I go around Maine, people still say that no matter what class year they were in, if you're in a room somewhere and you say that you did Leadership Maine and you meet another Leadership Maine alum, there's an instant bond, an instant credibility, an instant trust that, we're committed to something bigger than ourselves, the two of us, even though we never met each other before. And to hear that from folks as I go around Maine is just super special. And never take that for granted. I was also reflecting a lot. Jan asked me to reflect on my takeaways from Leadership Maine, but I was also reflecting a lot on my takeaways from the time I spent working full-time in state government 20 years ago. Been through the Capitol and the state office building a few times in recent weeks. We have the great, really, privilege of doing for the legislature a light version of what we do for you. We don't get 14 days with them, but we do get 2.5, and we do get a few other programming opportunities. And they went to Washington County this January. Because it was January, we had to have a blizzard. Julie's been working on this program with me for several years, so she knows that it's mandatory that you have a blizzard in the middle of the legislative bus tour. But to see them at the touch tank at Down East Applied Institute for Marine Research, like letting their hair down and acting like kids and letting go of those kind of like shields that keep you from learning. And then to see later that evening the Speaker of the House, Rachel Talbot Ross, who is a very liberal representative from Portland, and Billy Bob Falkingham, who's a very conservative lobsterman from Winter Harbor, to see them really, up there together, having a friendship, laughing and enjoying each other, knowing that they deeply disagree on so much of the substance of the issues. And, it'll be put to the test, has already been put to the test. But as I was talking to a few people in the State House the other day, because people ask us, how can you do this work when things are so polarized, right? How many know what was going on in the Maine State House in 1880? Come on. All right. Well, in 1880, there were armed gangs dueling for control of the Maine State House. Over what? Disputed election results. And the hero of Little Round Top, Joshua Chamberlain, had to physically interpose himself between these dueling gangs to restore order and start negotiations over what was going to happen. Little old Maine, sensible, pragmatic little old Maine in 1880. So a sense of perspective and history can only help us. But as I was talking to people in the state capitol the other day, I was thinking back to what is it, even in public policy and even in contentious and often divided settings like politics, what is it that, when I worked there, we got unanimous agreement on changes to Maine school funding formula to make it more equitable. like that is so hard to do because it's often a zero-sum game and a fixed pie. And I mean, I even remember there were members of the rural caucus that almost didn't want to win unless Portland had to lose. You know, that's the dynamic that can happen in those issues. And yet we got a unanimous recommendation out of committee. And as those who work in the legislature from time to time know, that means it goes under the hammer and it's done. And how do you do that on contentious issues? And the same thing a few years later with the laptop initiative that Governor King had, which started, I think, with 9% popular support. But I was thinking about what you do is you use great data, right, to shape common understanding, and you relentlessly work together as a group across party lines until you share an understanding of what the data is telling you. And you assume the good intent and goodwill of everyone at that table, right, of course. But I do admit, like in thinking about it, that the fact that I was working on education policy was probably part of the powerful ingredient too, because all of them are someone's kids, even if they're not your own, and even if they're not the kids in your community. I think at rock bottom, you know, people can say, you know, the kids in Portland don't have to lose for the kids in Farmington to win, right? That can't be the way that it works. So, but bringing people together around first purposes and true outcomes, using great data and persisting in constantly assuming good intent that we're in this together. If it takes 5 work sessions, 10 work sessions, we can do it. We have to do it together. I've been thinking about that. And at the end, what someone said to me in the halls the other day is, you know, it all comes down to trust or the lack of trust. So I hope you've built trust in yourself through this journey a bit. I hope you've built trust in all these amazing human beings next to you in this room, that there's amazing talent and goodwill in every sector, you know, geography and perspective of Maine. I hope you've built trust in the amazing potential of Maine and Maine people out there on this journey. So at the end of the day, as we end here and we started with the high ropes course, you know, I would just say again, and I was asking Julie, what did I say last fall? Because I don't want to repeat myself. Like, I don't remember Yellow. All right, well, it must have been great then. But you know, you leave here, you know, sometimes you're the climber and sometimes you're the belay team. And hopefully we've left you just a little bit better in both of those roles, both as the climber and on belay. So thank you for being part of this class, and thank you for your employers and peers for supporting you to be here.